5 years ago, my brother was in treatment for alcohol and met Nikki. She was in treatment too. My brother Chris had several mental health issues. He was bipolar, borderline personality disorder. He had Asperger's and suffered from ADD, ADHD on top of it all. With his issues, he turned to self-medication through alcohol and was a full-on alcoholic by the time he was 18. Nikki formed a relationship with Chris in treatment, and with the excitement of attention, Chris reciprocated. She promised she was on birth control. Spoiler alert, she wasn't. Soon after, they were both released and they went no contact. Fast forward 2 years, and our whole family gets a Facebook message from her, telling us that our niece, unbeknownst to us, had just turned 2 years old. Turns out that Chris and my mother had known she was pregnant. That was her endgame. She wanted a little girl. Chris had tried his best to be involved, but she would tell him incorrect times, locations for ultrasounds and doctor's appointments, or show up with a new meathead boyfriend that threatened to fight him for showing up. Chris tried so hard to be involved, and felt that he finally had a reason to be sober and clean up his life. Of course, the first course of action was a paternity test. But the minute we saw this baby, there wasn't a doubt in anyone's mind that this was his little girl. Paternity test came back 100% positive, and he took steps to better himself and be there for her. He entered a high-profile treatment center when she got pregnant, and after 2 years, he was clean. He reached out and Nikki allowed him to meet his daughter. The first thing that Nikki did was sue him for child support. He couldn't even hold a job with his disabilities, and lived in a group home on disability checks. We all met her at her second birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese. She of course brought her boyfriend of the week, and we were given the cold shoulder. This little girl was beautiful, and I've never seen my brother as happy as he was on those rides, and dancing with his daughter. We took videos and pictures, and reveled in the fact that he had a child. 2 weeks later, Chris died in his sleep. Talk screens show he was still sober, but that he had run his body so ragged in his alcoholism for almost 10 years, that his heart was tired and just gave up. He went peacefully, and broke our hearts. I returned back to my hometown, and for the first time, saw my parents within 100 feet of each other. I worked to choose a headstone and write an obituary, as my mother was inconsolable. I set up a fund for friends and family to donate money for his daughter to go to college, in lieu of donating money to us. We raised about $7,000 and were blown away by the generosity of others. At the funeral, Nikki and his daughter were very standoffish, and they seemed to love the attention they got as being all that was left of Chris. Everything went smoothly as much as I can remember, and she tried to stay in touch with the family and create some sort of relationship where we could cling to the life that our brother had left behind. Only 2 weeks after the funeral, Nikki posted on Facebook that she was going in for major surgery. She hadn't mentioned this to us. She wrote she'd be off work and needed support. The next photos were of a 2-inch incision at her waistline, and a caption saying, $5,500 for 5.7 pounds gone. Worth every penny. Previous to this, she was complaining that she had no money to raise his daughter after he died, which was a complete lie, considering she now would receive monthly payments until his daughter turned 18. And suddenly she got liposuction. Obviously our family was livid. In the years since, she has caused emotional turmoil for our family to the point of us wondering how worth it is to attempt to keep her in our lives. Became involved with a married man 20 years her senior at her job, caused huge drama, and ended up both losing their jobs. Dates aggressive, alcoholic D-addicts because she is so desperate not to be alone. Completely disregarded her previous son once her daughter came along, sending him to live with her grandparents. Slapped one of Chris's ex-girlfriends at his funeral over who he loved more. Consistently makes rude remarks about our family, and is generally extremely argumentative. Refused to send my niece to daycare or preschool, instead opting to leave her with her schizophrenic grandmother to save money. And this poor child is stunted developmentally because of it. So here's my question if you're still with me. This is all we have left of my brother, tangibly. This was his pride, his joy, his reason to be sober. This little girl is all we have left. But we have this giant toxic obstacle to deal with in order to have any relationship with her. Nikki will not let us see her alone. So, to spend time with her, we need to endure Nikki. Is it worth it to continue this emotional aggression? How can we have a relationship with my late brother's child and not go insane? It is so important to us that she is in our lives, but we don't know what to do. Why would you give an unstable person who isn't your family and used your brother $7,000? You could have set up a trust fund for the daughter to receive the money when she turns 18. Lawyer up, CPS up, sue for custody. Nikki seems to have some mental health issues or a personality disorder or both. Why do you keep expecting her to behave in a rational, stable manner? Why did you give her the $7,000 now, rather than investing it till the girl was ready for college? You show enormous compassion for your brother's burdens, yet nothing but anger for hers. I understand she behaves contemptibly, but you're really still angry about a mental patient lying about birth control. And did she really? You have only your brother's word. For all your hatred for her, have you considered that she, selfishly, brought your brother pure joy? He was able to quit drinking only because of the gift of his daughter. Maybe you should try to let go of some of your anger before you cut Nikki and the little girl out of your life for good. It's hard to imagine you wouldn't regret that decision someday. First of all, I come from an East Asian family, culture, where men are considered to be superior to women. My parents and aunts and uncles were born overseas, but my cousins and I were all born in the United States. My mom is the youngest of her family, and as a result, all of my cousins are at least 5 years older than I am. Growing up, I was not close with most of my cousins because they were all older than I am, and they did not want to hang out with me because I was a girl. The only cousin who did want to get to know me is my eldest cousin Michael, 42 male, but our relationship only started after I turned 18, because the age gap was so wide. He's the only one of my cousins who is friends with me on Facebook. Since my mom was the youngest child and the only girl in her family, she got picked last for everything, including the college money that my grandmother left her grandkids before she passed. My cousins all went to college using my grandmother's money, and by the time I graduated high school, nothing was left for me or my siblings. I still had really good grades, and I graduated high school at 16. I received a full scholarship to go to college for IT, and I'm now in a master's degree program. When I graduated with my undergrad degree, I sent out invitations to my family, but no one showed up except my parents and Michael, because everyone else was disappointed that I wasn't going to law school or med school. Even though I wouldn't have been able to afford either one, my cousins went to law school using my grandmother's funds. At the time, I decided that I didn't want to associate with a family who would be so greedy to take all the funds, yet so callous as to blame me for not being able to afford the extra schooling. So I brushed it off and just went on with my life. Shortly after graduation, I was offered a position as a software designer at a major local company and happily accepted. I didn't know it at the time, but one of my family's friends, Larry, 50s male, is the owner of the company, and he promoted me to a project management position after seeing my work. Neither Larry nor I had any idea that I was his friend's niece until a few months ago when he saw a family photo that my cousin Michael had tagged me in on Facebook. Somehow my cousins found out that I'm working for Larry, and ever since then they have been bad-mouthing me and trying to get Larry to fire me for my position. Two of my cousins, Roger, 29 male, and Louis, 32 male, graduated from law school a few years ago, but haven't been able to find jobs that pay enough for them. Roger's been working in a law office and his position pays $75K a year. Louis works for the state, and his position pays $110K a year. Neither one have student loans. Apparently they heard about the open project management position which pays $165K a year before I was promoted, and both had applied. But neither one was selected, or even an interview, because they didn't have any IT experience. Roger and Louis, and there may have been other cousins involved, have convinced their dads, my uncles, to speak to Larry about me and to convince Larry to fire me. Larry called me into his office a few weeks ago and asked me why my family wanted me fired, and I told them that I honestly had no clue. Larry spilled the beans on my family and told me that they had said that I'm a ditz, that I'm an airhead, and that I'm a lesbian, none of which is true. Thankfully, Larry told me that he had no intention of letting me go, and that I was the best PM his company has had in a long time, and that he was going to pay for my certification as long as I stay with the company. He just wanted to warn me that my family was talking behind my back, because what they said was offensive to him because his sister is a lesbian, and he doesn't appreciate those kinds of comments. That same night, my Facebook was blown up by my aunts and uncles because they were blaming me because another one of my cousins, Craig, 28 male, had been scheduled for an interview with Larry's company. But the interview had been cancelled. I didn't even know that Craig had applied for a job at the company, and had no clue that any of this was happening. But all of my family is blaming me. They kept posting nasty things on my Facebook wall before I got a chance to deactivate my account. And Michael got involved because he kept replying to all their posts, the same copy-pasted message, to leave me alone and to stop being vindictive and jealous. My family is now mad at Michael, but he's told me that he doesn't care what they do because it's more important to stand up for what is right in this situation. I don't know what to do. I don't want Michael to be caught up in all of this with me, but everything has spiraled out of my control. My knee-jerk reaction is to block them all and cease contact, but I don't know if I'm prepared to burn all those bridges with my family. It's just an awful situation, and I need an outsider's opinion on this whole fiasco. Why are you hesitant to burn bridges with people who thought nothing of trying to completely ruin your life for their gain? What positives will ever come from those relationships again? How will you be able to look at them in the eyes after they behave like spoiled children and had their daddy slander you because they wanted what you have? Duck them. As for Michael, don't worry about him. It sounds like he's a good guy and stepped into the fray for no other reason than he thought it was right. Also, it's probably because being the eldest of the generation, this is not the first pile of BS your family has left on the doorstep for him to deal with. Just be sure to let him know how grateful you are for defending you. They had said that I'm a ditz, that I'm an airhead, and that I'm a lesbian. Charming uncles you have there, OP. Did they really think their friend or acquaintance Larry would kowtow to their prejudices and bad-mouthing, instead of his own experience with you as being an exemplary employee? I suppose you don't want to cut the family off because your mother is still entrenched in the extended family dynamic, but I'd surely keep a little list of the worst offenders, and I'd be a long time forgiving or forgetting. But I guess living well is the best revenge. You have a great job, and you can help your siblings get their education. Talk to a lawyer. Bad-mouthing you on Facebook means you should block them all and cease contact. But bad-mouthing and lying about you to an employer with the intention of having you fired, that's malicious and potentially slander. Talk to a lawyer and simultaneously block them all on Facebook. Don't deactivate your account. Don't punish yourself for them being jerks. Me and my partner have known each other for the past 12 years on a superficial level. Last year we met again and fell head over heels for each other. I'm definitely in need for behavioral therapy because of ADHD, so I would try to ask a professional about this too, as soon as I have a chance. Long story short, he's divorced for a few years, has kids, and he had a superficial friendship with this woman, who's married, a hairdresser, and has kids herself. She decided to cheat on her husband with him, and they regularly met for playdates for the kids. He doesn't give a straight answer to if those dates were also dates for them. If so, I'm not a jealous person per se, and it's new to me that stories from the past make me feel weird. That has not been the case for a long time, and I find it extremely toxic to deal with. His whole family knows about it, and she's spoken about very positively. And they still meet for playdates every now and then. Also, he has an appointment once a week at her salon. He sees her more often than some of his friends. So, in conclusion, they became close friends over ducking each other while their kids may or may not have played downstairs. I don't know the details. And I don't know why they stopped the affair. I just assumed her husband found out. But according to my partner, who still sees him too when he's over there with his kids, he's okay with the whole ordeal. I'm not, and I won't be. I don't want to be a partner who demands someone to kick someone out of their life. It's just rubbing me the wrong way. If the friendship of their small children is so important, it should have been discussed back then. I feel the responsibility for that now is burdened on me and my abilities to overlook this. If it was for me, I would have chosen to not know this info. But alas, can't change that. The situation rubs me the wrong way. He told me his ex-girlfriend couldn't stand her and that this was a situation that was embarrassing for her. Him and his ex separated after 6 months, but he cheated on her too with this hairdresser lady. I don't like that. I'm not a person who never cheated. I'm not on a morally high ground, especially with his background and being in relationships with aggressive women. I understand he felt lonely. He says he's hurt because I assume their friendship isn't authentic. I'm just overwhelmed with the situation. I asked him if he could at least switch the hairdresser for duck's sake. Drop the kids off at her house to keep the children's friendship alive. But I can't deal with a woman who behaves like it's her house when she's here, who's close with my boyfriend's mom, etc. I know it's definitely not healthy to pressure him into letting this go. I also don't know what triggers me so much here. We're talking about it. But it seems it's expected I need to change my mind on the matter. It's not like it's a 10-year-old story. Am I the a-hole for asking my boyfriend to kick his ex-affair out of his life? Oh, not the a-hole. If he's notorious for cheating, honestly, I would wash my hands of the whole relationship. I don't blame you one bit for feeling how you do. Not the a-hole, and run. He's not going to change, and you don't have to deal with his mess. Not the a-hole. He's notorious for cheating, and I'm sorry to say this, but sis, you are the side chick. His kids love her and her kids. His family loves her. He's cheated on other relationships to sleep with her. Those playdates and salon visits. Come on now. Do we really need to spell out the walking red flag that you're dating right now? Find someone better.